Now. We will give it a few minutes for the room to fill up, and then we will get started. We got Omar with us today and David Barrio, a couple of super smart AI folks. This is going to be a fun one. And let us know. We had the big OpenAI announcement yesterday. Anybody gotten access to the new ChatGPT agent yet? What do you think about it? We didn't get the GPT-5. I don't know, Omar or David, if you've gotten access yet or tried to try it.
No, so for the folks on the call, Matt knows this. I'm six. If you hear me hacking up a lung, it is expected and par for the course, actually.
You get
Um,
the deep, raspy voice though. It's working for you.
right, I've got the voice for radio. So for the folks on the call, Matt and I have been talking about sort of the plateauing of model predictive capabilities and sort of development going elsewhere across the stack. So we had bets whether this announcement, we had bets over what this announcement would be. And so I guess, Matt, did it come as a surprise to you what it ended up being?
I had some inklings around the agent thing. I thought we may get the GPT-5, but I think they're holding off on that for a little bit, so we'll see. Um, you know, who knows the reasons why they say one thing and maybe another.
We've
And
been
for
in,
folks on the phone, we're just chatting about the new agent, ChatGPT agent that released while we're waiting for the room to fill up. We'll jump into the webinar in just a second.
yeah. We've been talking about the sort of diminishing marginal returns of training these models for a while. The scaling laws that we've reached, the lack of good quality data, the increase of AI produced data, the lack of hardware and power in the energy grid to sort of um, fund and enable these new training pipelines. So all of these forces really point to the need to drastically redo the model's architectures. And
Totally.
until significant breakthroughs happen in that architectural layer, I think we might be stuck in this plateau for a little while longer. And I think one of the telltale signs is when different companies are not able to release the foundation models on the timelines that they expect. So the OpenAIs, the Anthropics, the Googles, as they struggle to release models, I think that's a sign of where we're at with the scaling loss.
Awesome.
Nice,
That's
yeah.
very interesting, Omar. Yeah, I remember of like a year back when all of this AI thing was growing a lot. Jan LeCun, who is one of the fathers of AI, one
Yeah.
of the creators of convolutional neural networks, he was saying like, hey, data is going to be an issue at some moment for these autoregressive models because right now we have models that rely on a lot of data to try to predict next tokens. It can be image, audio, text, whatever, but it requires quality data so it can train on historic data. And at this point, we have consumed like all of the quality data that's out there. So that's like the challenge. How can we rebuild these architectures, these models to go beyond that autoregressive approach and do something that can take us to the next step? That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, good perspective, y'all. If anybody has thoughts on that, drop it in the comments. But I think we're good. We got a good quorum to get started here. It looks like we got folks from all over the world, which is always cool to see. We got Costa Rica, Chicago, some different spots there. But thanks for joining today. So we are going to be talking about multimodal and agents in this one webinar today. This is going to be a good one. So we have Omar joining us today, CTO of Hatchworks AI, and David Barrio as well, Senior AI ML Engineer at Hatchworks AI too. And we're going to have a really cool demo we're going to show at the end of something that the team has built. But we're also going to talk about multimodality, what it is, how to think about it. It's one of the most important aspects when you think about the user experience with AI. And I don't think it's actually talked about enough. So we're going to get into that. But let's jump into it. So most people, when they're using AI, stop about right here. It's talking with ChatGPT. You can see the prompt right here. Make this email to my boss sound better. I've used this several times. Pro tip, take off the ChatGPT thing at the end where it says, "Is this sound good? Do you want me to make this more concise?" Because that's a dead giveaway. You just used ChatGPT. But this is where a lot of people stop. It's in the chat type of component. But this modality of chat is super powerful. And you can look at one of the biggest insurance providers out there, Allstate, they found AI to be more empathetic than its human reps. And so what they did, they have 23,000 insurance reps. They're now sending 50,000 communications a day. Almost all now are written by AI, and this is part of their claims process, right? So they found it to be more empathetic, use less jargon, all types of stuff like that. But they're using AI to actually write the emails, and there's still a human in the loop approving the email before it goes out. But this modality of chat is super powerful, and you can see that from major players out there starting to leverage it. But if you're thinking of LLMs as just a chatbot or just a word generator, you're completely limiting your thinking. And so you almost got to think of chat as like the tip of the snowflake that just landed on the iceberg. There is so much more potential when it comes to modalities. And so when we talk about modalities, we'll get into what they actually are. But the beauty here is they can be used as both an input and an output into the AI systems that you're building, which is powerful. And so the way I want everybody here to like metaphorically think about these is like they're almost like AI's senses, right? You have obviously text we talked about, audio, visual. It can see, it can create video and images, it has tactile and sensory capabilities. You see this with some of the humanoid robotics players out there. I mean, the only thing I think it can't do yet is smell and taste. But I don't know, Omar and David, have you seen smelling and tasting AI robots yet? I don't think we've had that yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's coming soon.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, not me also, but I think the limitation is more like on the transductors, what translates smell into
Mhm.
computer interface. But once that's
Yeah, yeah.
solved, totally, we'll see them.
Yeah, I think
And do we want that too? Is the question.
right, exactly. I think the interesting thing is the Oracle problem. Like once you are able to capture a signal, then you're able to process it. Like David is a sound engineer
Mhm.
and all of that. I mean, we take it for granted now that we can actually do voice and audio-based models. But there was a time when you could sort of take a signal and then decompose it into the different components. That was, amazing technology. The puck has moved so far forward there, and I think it's just a matter of time before we make the initial breakthrough with taste and with tactile. Well, actually, tactile's already making significant progress
Yeah.
with sensors. So I think it's just a matter of time before we get taste and smell.
Nice. And the big thing here is as you're starting to architect the solution, like we mentioned earlier, they can be used as both inputs and outputs into systems. And they can also be used in conjunction together. So that's where you start to get really impactful solutions when you start to pair some of this together. And I'll run through just a couple of like fun random examples and then we'll get into like the cooler custom thing later. But just to kind of show off what we're talking about here. So this is Google's AI Studio. So if you're familiar with the Gemini app, they also have this AI Studio where you can do some different things. And I'm going to show off the vision capability right now. So what you can actually do here, it's pretty cool. You can come in and you can add a YouTube video. So this is something like OpenAI struggles with this. If you drop in a YouTube video or something for it to watch, it can't watch it. But they've been able to do this here, or they've enabled it on the Google side. So I put in this YouTube video that's talking about the ChatGPT agent that just released, and you can see it pulled it up, and you can specify the start and end times you want it to look at. We'll just, check out the whole thing. But to show it off, I'm going to give it a prompt and tell it to. Let's see. Let's watch the attached YouTube Shorts video and do the following. Provide me a detailed overview of what the video is about. Provide me a foundational reasoning why this video went viral. And then based on the video idea, provide me a script of how to create a similar video. So let's see how it does. And you're going to see it's running through and kind of reasoning through and looking at the video itself. So it's doing the research here. Uh, so this is, one capability where it's using vision in essence to kind of see the video, and it's still thinking, still thinking. Let's see if it gets to the output here soon. Uh, in the Betty Crocker style, I'll pull over the one I did right before this. So what it does is it kind of provides a detailed overview of the video, providing details about it. Then it gives into the reasons why it went viral, the novelty, exclusivity, high impact demonstrations, all of these things. and it's using looking at the video to provide this response. And it's interesting, like you can have it go to specific timestamps and it can actually pull that out as well. So that's one kind of concept where it's using vision to see, but it can also do it on the output side. And this is a neat example too, staying in the Google space. Luis on our team has been experimenting with VO3. I'm sure several of y'all have seen um, this new technology, the video technology by Google that's come out. So let me pull this over here. So this is just an experimentation he did. We have this tool called the AI Opportunity Finder. It helps you find AI use cases in your business. So I'll just play this.
We just told it our size, industry, and goals. That's it.
Find the AI use cases with the highest ROI. Try AI Opportunity Finder by Hatchworks.
Which is kind of mind-blowing if you think about it. The fact that it's able to create this realistic of a video is kind of insane. I don't know, Omar or David, if you have any thoughts on kind of the latest iterations of the video side, but you can start to architect these in a certain way as well, which is really impactful considering what you would have to pay for the shoot to do something like this. And by the way, check out the AI Opportunity Finder. It's a custom GPT that kind of takes you through and identifies use cases in your business.
Oh yeah, I mean the growth is exponential in the quality of the videos. People were using videos for marketing campaigns back 3, 4, 5 years ago. But now you can do a lot more with a lot less. And I think that's just really exciting from a bottom line perspective, but also from like a sort of democratization perspective. More people can be creative now than before. David's actually working on a project that brings the ability to create children's stories, illustrated children's stories to families across the country so that, you know, anyone who wants to get creative with their son or their daughter or their child are able to do that in a way that they weren't able to before, really because of the latest developments in AI. So really
Yeah,
excited.
that's cool. Yeah, that's really neat. All right, let's look at one other one before we go deeper. So this is one called Hume AI. Anybody can go try it for free. But again, this is hitting on some of those vision capabilities. And if you go to their expression measurement playground, it'll spin up the video here of me talking. And then you can actually see it starting to register my expressions, my emotions, so interest, awe, amusement, excitement, or maybe let's see what it gets there, confusion, concentration. So it's actually leveraging its vision capabilities to see, and then you can also get the speech prosody in terms of the inflection in my voice is the same kind of thing here too. So you can look back at that all state use case and think about how you can make that so much more dynamic if it's a call or interaction, and you can think of tons of use cases across sales, customer support, customer services, somebody getting upset. So just another kind of angle around the modality itself. All right, and let's jump back over here to the presentation if I can find it in my tabs. There we go. And then you even have Figure AI. I don't know if y'all have seen this video. We'll drop it in the comments. But this kind of puts it all together. It has vision, it can see, it can hear a request, and it has the tactile piece there, and it can reason, right? So it's reasoning through, okay, I have this group of groceries that needs to be put up, and it's determining what goes in the fridge, what goes in the pantry, and all of those things. But we'll drop that video in the comments. I'll put the link to Figure. But this is a cool one to look at. Now, most people here, most companies are not going to have these working in the near term future, right? So let's take a step back. I think this is a key element, and we see this a lot. I know Omar and David, when you're getting into solutions, people come to us and they want to use AI, right? They have a directive from their board. It's like we need AI, but a lot of
Mhm.
folks start with the features, the modalities before they start with the experience, right? And the best AI experiences you create start with the user in mind. This is like a base principle that existed before generative AI went crazy, and it still exists today, if not more so, right? So the modality you choose should match your user, how your user wants to experience the solution, not just how you want AI to work. So yes, something may be super cool with voice or vision or a robot, but is that ideal for the user? And I think
That's
that's a
right.
piece that you can't gloss over.
One thing to consider is if you do persona mapping against the people that you're looking to serve, you might realize that some of them are unable to write, either because they never learned or because the setting in which they're operating, like let's say a truck driver, their job is not conducive to writing. If you're operating heavy machinery and your hands might be, you're wearing safety equipment, voice may be better. But then similarly, if you're a technician, maybe the most efficient thing would be for you to be able to upload pictures of the parts that you're working on. And so we like to factor in all of those into account, and we call this the product thinking side of things,
Yeah.
because it's really the product thinking that makes or breaks your AI models.
And what's cool too, at like a meta level, you can start to use AI in that discovery process, right? Because one of the most painful things in discovery is like synthesizing all the insights. You can have AI help you do some of that on the back end. But I think that's well said, Omar. And the key here is like once you have the right modality, it can do a lot of amazing things, increasing adoption because it's more natural, less friction, increases trust if it feels intuitive and not robotic, kind of like the robots we were just seeing a minute ago. More effective, meeting the user where they are in the moment in the right modality they need, and then more inclusive. I mean, Omar, you hit on several good examples around that based on either the user's abilities or the environment they're in or the mindset they're in. There's so many different factors that start to play into building a solution that meets the user where they are.
Yeah,
And
spot on.
and you hit a few examples there, but like you think of like a parent multitasking at home. Well, how could you use voice and visual response to make it easier to ask questions hands-free, get a quick answer? Execs reviewing dashboards before a meeting, the visual and conversational AI. Teens using it for homework. Maybe it's a text and visual, but also kind of a diagram generation to help them learn as they go. And you kind of hit this one, like the DIYer fixing something. And I've done this before. I don't know if like the ChatGPT app, if y'all have tried this out, but you can turn on the video and it can see what you're seeing. And I've had it help me fix things around the house, like my garbage disposal, my garage door. And I saved a bunch of money because I didn't have to hire somebody to come fix it. But it's all about meeting the user where they are in that experience. And Omar, I turn it over to you here to kind of go through, the different layers and how you think about the different components when you're building multimodal solutions.
Yeah, so as Matt mentioned, multimodality is really the art of taking AI and making it work for your customers. But the trick is not to just think of AI as a model, because AI is a lot more than a model. AI is, as we sort of talk about it, typically bundled in the forms of agents and products. And so that involves a model, but that also involves equipping that model with data relevant to your users and your customers. So that's this sort of context side of the house. And then there's the agent side of the house, which is what actually equips your model to be able to take actions and query that context. And then lastly, the application, which is how you make your model wrapped up in an agent with context accessible to your end users. Multimodality does not only live sort of as a tack on in the third layer, but the model layer as well has multimodality sort of built in, and your data store in the sense that if your data store is capable of storing images and then vectorizing those images to extract signal from them, you can query your vector store with images and have it find relevant images that apply, right? So you saw from multimodality up and down the stack, but it's really in that top layer of the application where multimodality shines. So let's go to the next slide here, Matt. This is an
And that
article.
one you hit on the querying with images, like that's powerful because in the past it's like, it's all text-based code, everything like that. It's kind of like the Gemini example we looked at where it was able to look at the video and you could ask questions of it there, which is and that's the piece too. I feel like a lot of the use cases out there are in that state of like, oh, that's kind of cool. It's like a neat trick, but getting to the point where you can start to identify what opportunities it unlocks in your business is like the next level piece. It's kind of like when you see an ant on the picnic, the picnic table, right? And then you start to see all the ants. Getting in that mindset of being able to identify where the opportunities exist is powerful.
Yep. Yeah, well said. And so this architecture takes the previous sort of conceptual architecture and let's actually explore what this looks like in practice. So I'm going to start annotating Matt's screen here. Matt Berrio, can you confirm that you see this annotation?
Yep, you
Perfect.
good?
Yes, we can.
Thumbs up. So everything's going to start with your end user, right? And the question is, how do you deliver value to your end user? Well, what we're proposing is that you can deploy a chatbot across multiple different channels. I'm using chatbot over here in like the most broad sense of the term, but a multi-turn conversational interface that accepts text, images, audio, and so on. You might go through an SMS-based interface if your customers require it because they're in a low connectivity place. They've got good mobile data, but they don't have Wi-Fi or access to the internet. SMS might be a decent option for them. Alternatively, if you know that your customers are comfortable using the web opens up a lot of doors. For another client base, you might go socials, so social media, and then another client base, you might go through the phone. There's myriad other channels that you might consider, but these are just four of them. And notice that SMS is text-based. Web might be text, might also be audio. Phone is effectively exclusively audio, and socials like web is text, rich text, what we might call so text, images, buttons, graphs, widgets, and so on. So your user can collaborate, so your user can interact on multiple channels, and each of these channels will have a dedicated connector. And think of this connector sort of like a translator, right? So it teaches the agent how to speak SMS, how to speak web, how to speak phone. And so you might have a phone gateway which solves for text to speech or speech to text conversions. You might have a socials API which understands really the nuance behind the X or the Meta APIs. I almost said Twitter and Facebook. The API gateway over here is something that is just sort of used very often these days. And then, SMS connectors as well. So you've got these connectors, but why am I sort of why am I focusing so much on this? Well, because this is the translation library, what you can call, that makes the agent able to speak on all of these modalities, right? So you sort of plug them in as modules, and then your agent can now go on SMS, can go on socials, can interact on WhatsApp. So super exciting stuff there. But for that to work, your agent should be able to analyze images if your customer wants to provide images or videos or so on. And so for that, your agent should use a multimodal LLM. Additionally, if you have a knowledge base, in this example, this is an e-commerce company where someone might be able to like upload an image of an order that they've received and say, this is not the right order, or ask a question such as, how do I assemble this? We should take that image and we should query the knowledge base with that image directly. So in this case, this is a Shopify customer. And behind the scenes, we take that Shopify data, we process it, and then we store it in a way that allows us to query that Shopify data conversationally and using images. So that's sort of how we solve for multimodality up and down the stack. And just to bridge the gap between this slide and the next slide, Matt, I've got some animations. So can you click once? This is the data side of the picture. So this represents the bottom portion, the context layer, right? Next button, please. This is the agent. And then within the agent, we have the LLM. If you click the next, that is also multimodal. As we'd mentioned, a model like Gemini is built from the ground up with multimodality, so it can take image, audio, video, and so on. And then lastly, we have our sort of application layer, which is how we bridge the gap between our agent and our customers. And with that,
And I think too, like if there's folks like looking at this like, oh, I'm not technical, my eyes are glazing over architecture diagram. The beauty here is the modularity of all of this. Like the LLM, like you can easily cycle in different LLMs for different use cases. The components on
Totally.
the application layer, like you can tweak stuff very easily in a custom way. You can add new data sources as things change and grow. And that's the beauty of like creating a really novel custom solution that's tailored to whatever use case you have, right? It's not just giving people ChatGPT and hoping for the best in essence.
If you take anything away from this diagram, it should just be these boxes that you see over here, right?
Yeah, the big boxes, right?
The big blue, orange, yellow, and the light blue, with the idea being that you can plug and play anything into those boxes. You can swap one LLM for another. You can build very extensive agents, and you can have whatever data estate that you want. The actual multimodality portion of channels and connectors there, you can sort of plug onto whatever your agent is and get that
Yeah.
working reasonably well. Bonus points if you're building on a natively multimodal agent like a Gemini.
Nice, very cool. Any last points there, Omar,
No,
David, before we jump to the
with that, I'll pass it off
Awesome.
to David.
Yeah, sure.
cool?
No, just wanted to share one last thought before we jump into the demo, and it's very related to what Omar was
Hey,
describing.
David, do you want me to stop the screen share so you can take it over to do the demo, or wait a minute?
Yeah, let's share this one, and
Okay, cool.
we can stop in a moment. Yeah, yeah. Just wanted to finish this idea that it's also related to what we were talking before about. Hey, maybe at some point near in the future we'll have agents that can smell as well, and that can have access to all these different senses. And this comes from the idea of, hey, if you think about it, we as humans, when we think about a dog, for example, we have a clear idea of what a dog is. We can see a picture of a dog, we can hear someone talking about a dog, we can read about a dog, we can access to this information in many different ways, but in the end, probably what triggers in our brain, it's exactly the same, right? Like it's the idea or the concept behind a dog. So one of the biggest challenges probably the last 5 years has been like, hey, how can we do or get to a similar idea or concept inside a machine? And this is what has enabled like these multimodal models. And it's very related to the concept of what we call embeddings, which is, hey, we translate a concept or an idea, no matter in which space or in which mode it come from, like it can be an image, a text, audio, whatever, we'll translate it in an abstraction that will work for everything. So this is one of the brightest ideas probably in computer science in the last 5 years, and it's what has enabled all of this. So I just wanted to give like this background because sometimes it feels like magic, but sometimes this is also inspired in how we as humans work, and that's part of the beauty of these developments. So yeah, now given this context, let's just jump into our demo, the demo that we have for today. So the demo that we have is basically a Truval AI. So Truval AI is an application for real estate appraisal validation. So it's a system that will help real estate agents or agencies or people working in the market to basically provide appraisal PDF documents. And this agent will be able to analyze those appraisals, will be able to extract information from them, from both the text in the appraisals and also the images, because we're going to see that these appraisals are very multimodal by nature as well, and they are very unstructured. So this is a great example of how can we leverage multimodal agent for this kind of tasks. So yeah, there are some challenges that we identified, and is that there's a lot of manual and error-prone analysis on structured appraisal documents, and there's a lack of standardization across formats and providers. So some of them are PDF images, some of them are PDFs, documents, sorry, some of them are images. Some might even have handwritten notes. Some might have like a form structure. Some might not have any structure at all. And we're going to see a couple of examples in a moment. But yeah, that's part of the challenge. There's a lot of non-standardization in this kind of documents, and that leads to a lot of manual and error-prone analysis. And our solution, in this case, Truval AI, is a multimodal AI agent that extracts structured data from these documents. Again, they can be text, tables, images, anything that comes up in these documents. And we are also enabling a conversational voice agent that allows agents to interact through voice with whatever information they have in the appraisal document. So we want to go deeper into this. So yeah, actually now, Matt, I might want to share at this point.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and stop.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah, it's such a good use while you're pulling that up, such a good use case because, like you mentioned, there's just lack of uniformity in all of these documents, which is a perfect use case for AI to solve.
Totally, yeah, exactly. That's where AI really shines, when we have like
Yeah.
unstructured data, things that are hard to parse, information that it's not that straightforward to extract. So yeah, this is our Truval AI demo, and I want to run the demo and give you an idea of how this looks like. And in parallel, I want to start describing this architecture, which might look a little bit overwhelming for non-technical people, but I want to make it very clear as we walk through the demo that yeah, I want to show like each of these components and how it's working. So yeah, let's go back to the demo. So as I mentioned, Truval is an AI-powered real estate appraisal validation system that tries to detect inconsistencies, validates property comparables, and generates comprehensive fraud risk assessments. So let's start the analysis. And what we're seeing here is the front end of the application. So it basically is the piece of the application that the user interacts with. So if we go to this diagram again, we start with the user at the left side, and this is basically the application that we are seeing, our web app. So in this application, we can access to different models. So we can access to a document upload UI. We can do document extraction review. We can see a result dashboard, and we can interact with the voice agent. So this is part of the functionalities that we'll be seeing in a moment. So first thing, let's go to the document upload UI. So this is where we are now. So this is basically the screen where we are able to upload an appraisal report. In this case, let's upload this appraisal. And this uploading is going to trigger a series of tasks here. So before that, before we get deep into what this is actually doing, I would like to just share 1 second, one of these documents, so we have an idea of how they look like. So yeah, this is an example of how an appraisal document might look like. So you can see we have pictures of the property, we have some structured or semi-structured data here that comes like, like for example, with the address, location of the property. We have more pictures, more semi-structured data as well. Now unstructured data of the property, some comparable properties. So this is one single example of how this looks like. We have even maps. We have lots of different data inputs here. And let's open another one very fast, which is in fact the one that we uploaded.
How many pages is that document? Like 100, it's probably 100 something pages. I think that's the thing too. Like when you're thinking
Exactly.
about this stuff, you got to equate it to what it takes a human to go through and review something
Totally.
like this, right? That's
Totally,
the
yeah.
comparison point you got to make.
Exactly. These documents can go up, yeah, longer than 100 pages. So
Yeah, it's 160, it looks like. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. This is a shorter one, but it's totally different as you can see. So we have like a form structure on this front page where we have like some features about the property. Again, we'll have some pictures down here about the property, describing like different parts of it, front view. We have interiors, we have like bedrooms, all of the features of the property are basically described by pictures as well. We have comparable properties also. So yeah, all of this just to show you the nature of this problem. Basically, there's no standardization at all in this kind of documents, and they are also super long. And this is also very important when we want to select the LLMs for the agent that we are building. So as someone was showing in the previous architecture, LLM is usually like a modular piece of the solution, and we can move it, we can change it. And in this case, for this particular use case, we required of an LLM that had enough context window to be able to process all of this data without issue, right? Because yeah, as we just saw, this can be very, very long. So for this case, we decided to go with Gemini models because they do very, very well in the context size. Okay, so now we got our document uploaded. So let's take a look at the result. So this is the dashboard. So before we jump into this, I want to get back to our diagram, because basically when we uploaded the document, what happened was that it triggered a set of operations or functions that processed the document. So first thing, it used an LLM, which is part of our agent, to extract some key value pairs about the property. So we extracted some features about the property, like, for example, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, location, all of these, I will call it metadata that describes the property and give us an idea of how it looks like and what kind of property it is. Given that information that the agent provides to us, the agent is going to connect to a real estate listing provider, in this case, something like Rentcast or Realtor. And based on the features that we extracted, it's going to look for comparable properties. So it's going to search for properties that are similar in their price tag, or that have similar amount of bedrooms, similar amount of square feet in terms of size, sorry. And it's going to start retrieving a list of potential comparable properties that it's going to use in the next step. So once it retrieves those properties, those comparable properties, the agent is going to analyze. It's going to compare our property, the one that is described in our appraisal, with the ones that we are retrieving in the comparables. And it's going to come up with some analytics that it's exactly what we are seeing in the
That's
dashboard
wild.
here.
Hey, David, real quick, I got a question from
Yes.
Jeff in the audience. He asked, can it read handwritten notes on the PDF? And I believe the answer is yes, right? That's one of the
That's
benefits of
correct. That's
an LLM.
correct. And we are leveraging this capability directly from Gemini 2.5, which is the model that we are using here, which is a model that gives us multimodal input. And yeah, again, handwritten is usually interpreted as an image, and it can interpret the text inside that image.
And what's cool there too is like you don't need necessarily a bunch of different models to do this, because a lot of the frontier models
Exactly.
they just inherently can do these multimodal things, which just makes it
Totally.
so much easier when you're building a system. And like I can't wait to see the output here, but like how long did this take you to build? Just out of curiosity. And this is just a random demo, right?
Yeah, exactly. For this demo, this took probably 2 or 3 days, dedicating some time to build this
Yeah.
demo, putting all the pieces together and getting to what we are seeing at the moment.
Yeah, that's mind blowing the speed at which you can build as well.
Absolutely.
That's crazy. Cool. Let's see the output.
Exactly. So now we are seeing the report here. So as you can see, we are assigning a risk score to this appraisal. We are flagging here the original value of the property. We are providing an adjusted value, which we think is more accurate based on the market analysis that we did. We are giving it an overvaluation percentage based on this adjusted value and the original value. And we're providing a risk factor analysis. And this is pretty awesome as well, because this shows also the ability of the model and the agent not only to extract data and get comparables, but also to analyze what we are getting and try to get deeper into it. So for example, take a look at this one. Like in property features, we say that this is a high risk property in this site because the property only has one bathroom, one full bathroom, which is a significant functional deficiency compared to most recent comparable sales. Many feature 1.5 to 3.5 bathrooms in the similar price tag. So this went deeper, not only analyzed the data, because this risk was not flagged in the appraisal itself. It was something that the model inferred based on the comparisons that it did with external properties and the appraisal that we provided. Also, yeah, conditions and age, it's saying that it's a property built in 1955, so the property is nearly 70 years old. This increases the likelihood of needing significant capital expenditures for major systems in the near to medium term. So yeah, this is also giving us a report of some of the properties that it broke from the listing provider, in this case Rentcast.
Wow. That's cool.
That are comparable. Yeah, and it shows like this green tick icon when they are similar in price tag and features, and and that our property is close to that. But for example, it shows in red when it's totally
It looked
different.
at 50 comparable properties, is that right? So like
Exactly,
in
yeah.
what seconds it it did that
Totally,
whole
yeah.
analysis? Like, I mean, that's
It took a
crazy.
few minutes. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah.
insane.
It's crazy. Yeah, it retrieved 50 comparables and analyzed them. Yeah, in probably less than a minute. While I was showing the
Yeah,
PDFs,
the
it
architecture.
was
Yeah.
doing all of this work in the
Wow.
background. Yeah, exactly. So
And
yeah,
and go up real quick to the top of the dashboard. So
yeah, sure.
like there's two components of this stuff too when you're thinking about use cases and opportunities. Like there's the time savings, which is huge. Like I mean, it could take
Yes,
somebody a whole day, multiple days, like actually getting to this state. But
yeah,
also the you look right there, the adjusted value. So it's providing a recommendation that, hey, this thing's overvalued by what is that, like $40,000? That's the other
exactly,
side of the value of AI is like the outcome potential of the solution. Because now you can make a more competitive bid. You have data to back it up. And that is value in itself there. So there's always like two sides of the value equation. Don't always just think about like cost savings and efficiency. There's like
exactly.
the business model, the outcomes, all of that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is definitely the value of this. And again, it calculated this risk score is like a summary of the whole analysis that it did for this property. Yeah, it's basically a statistical analysis that the agent is doing internally based on all these comparables, all this information. This will take lots of time for a human. Uh,
And now on the flip side, go run this across a bunch of properties and go
yeah,
identify the ones that are undervalued, right? And then you
exactly.
go bid on those, and then you have like,
Totally.
potentially
Yeah,
instant equity, which is pretty
exactly.
cool.
Yeah, this has lots of potential use cases for sure. Okay, so
Oh,
yeah,
we got a
moving.
question coming up that I think you're about to get into. So Catherine asked, with the voice assistant button, can the user interact and get a quick audible summary? So I think that's the
Oh yeah,
next part of the demo,
yeah,
right?
we're getting into that in just a second. So yeah,
Cool.
just to summarize what we have done so far. So we provided the document. It was able to analyze it, retrieve relevant comparables, create this report that we just saw, and of course store all of this in a data storage system and provide it back to our result dashboard in our user interface or front end. So the part that we are missing exactly is the voice agent. So this is a feature that we developed to try to showcase also some of the capabilities of multimodal agents. And let's jump into it actually. So let's get here to the voice agent. Let's say start voice assistant. And hey, can you give me a detailed description of the property in the appraisal? So it's going to take some moment while it analyzes the document.
This is a well-maintained 1955 brick rancher in Maryland, featuring a classic exterior with an attached one-car garage. Its interior has been impressively updated with new wood floors, a modern kitchen with granite counters, and a large finished walkout basement. The 3-bedroom, 1.5-bath home is under contract, but the appraisal is subject to a required repair of an exterior electrical wire.
Now think of like the real estate agent going between properties. They're in the car. Like this gets back to the user experience and meeting them where they are. They can have a
Yeah,
conversation with this
exactly.
agent and get context in the middle of going from one property to another, right?
Totally, exactly. That's a great use case for this. Also, yeah, so this question was like very general. It asked like about a very general description of the property, but it went into very detailed topics, like for example, that it required some repairment on the electrical wiring and things like this. And if we, I'm going to bring up the appraisal that we shared here very fast again, because I want to show that this is something that that is shown here, like it has damage for an electrical wire covering, and this is
Oh
something
yeah.
that the model was able to capture to and provide in this summary. So let's go back. Let's ask now probably a more specific question that because sometimes with models with large context, we have what we call like the needle in the haystack problem, which is basically that if we ask for very specific things in a very long context, it might get lost. So let's ask something like, hey, is there someone currently living in the property?
Yes, the appraisal report indicates that the owner is currently living in the property.
Exactly. So we were able to extract that specific data point.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's like a nuanced question that probably is not like, to your point, it's like it's a
exactly.
needle in the 100-page document somewhere.
Totally. And if you see here, it comes up like on this place, which is like a form, a
Yeah.
data part, like semi-structured. And yeah, it just says occupant, and the owner part is like marked with this X. And it was able to access that information and provide an answer. Of course, there are different kind of models that has this multimodality of voice. In this case, for our use case, you see it's not like we ask and we get a response immediately. It needs to analyze the document. It need to think about it. That's because Gemini 2.5 is a reasoning model. So a reasoning model means that it will think step by step, will analyze the document step by step, and will take some time to give you a response. But this is the kind of model that we need for this specific use case. There are other models that will give you a human response right away, and it will sound like a very, very natural conversation. So it really depends on the use case that you're trying to implement and on the product itself. Here, since we want something that goes into these long context documents and retrieve information, that's why we decided to go with a reasoning model instead of just a plain response model.
Yeah, and that nuance is so important too, right?
Yes,
Because again, it's you're tailoring it to the use case. In this use case, the natural flow of conversation is not as important as getting the data accurate. So you made that
exactly.
architectural decision in a sense.
Absolutely. Totally. Exactly. So yeah, this is the demo that we had for today. So as you can see, all this architecture was built in Google Cloud. We leveraged Gemini, so that's why we decided to go with this approach of Google Cloud. So again, this really falls into what Omar was mentioning before. We need to think about the product and the requirements of that product when we want to decide the technical stack that we want to use. In this case, the main reason for us to go with Google Cloud was that we wanted to deal with long documents that require lots of context. And
Yeah.
we found out that Gemini 2.5 is the best model out there for this kind of tasks. And that was the reason for us going into Google Cloud and building all our infrastructure there. So yeah, this is the demo that we had for today. I don't know if we have more open questions, comments.
Cool. Yeah, let me take over a presentation. I'll pull something else up. Yeah, we got lots of hand clapping. Brilliant from Catherine. Luis is still impressed that he was able to answer that quickly off of a 100-page document. But let me know, y'all, if you got questions, let me know. I'd also be curious, like let's throw out some use case ideas based on what y'all just saw, like any other interesting use cases specific to your business. Gives us ideas for things to do in future labs and whatnot
Yeah,
as well, but be curious there. And then for folks here, like, obviously we do these labs, so we'll have a whole host of them coming up in Q3. We got the podcast too that's starting to get a lot of traction lately. Check it out, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and then our State of AI report. Plus, we have a lot of stuff published just in terms of thought leadership and whatnot. And for this group here, we're doing an offer that basically allows you to meet with us and identify multimodal agentic use cases, things you can automate with AI in your business. So this is unique to this group. We're only doing 10 slots for the month, mainly because just there's not enough time in the day. So if you use this QR code, I think Andy probably put the link um, in the chat as well if you want to check that out. But yeah, I think we're at the point where if anybody has any questions, or Omar, if you got any hot takes after the demo as well, we can jump into that part.
Honestly, I think just one thing to consider is the use case, but also the persona. So, in this real estate use case, imagine that you're a commercial real estate company and you have sellers in the field. These are time poor resources who are trying to squeeze in as many meetings in the day. They're constantly on the move. They're working off of their phones. Having a voice interface showcase some of the same data as a actual sort of textual interface might mean the world of difference when it comes to adoption, right? Because we're
Yeah.
sort of meeting them where they are. So maybe another thing to think about is who are the personas in your company who might be underserved when you have a basic text-based interface that requires being at your laptop? And what kind of modality, what kind of channel works best for them instead?
Yeah, we got a couple questions coming in. One from Catherine said, this is very cool. So 2 to 3 days building. Did you vibe code it? How did you determine what was the best model? So yeah, I'd be curious, like David and Omar, take us through this because like we we use AI in the development process. It's core to what
Yes.
we do. I would say how we approach it is different from vibe coding because when we think about vibe coding, we think about, you're kind of like running on vibes, seat of your pants, like let the model take you where it takes you.
Yeah, it's like a
Our,
blind approach, I will say. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, yeah. So what we call it generative driven development. It uses
Exactly.
AI at every part of the process, but it's more intentional. But like David, take us through like you as the engineer, how you approach and use AI when you're building now that you have like AI as a tool.
Absolutely. No, I think your point is pretty clear. Like, I think our GenDD approach differentiates from vibe coding in the sense that we are very intentional and we know what we are doing, right? We are not asking the LLM to build big pictures for us. We are trying to have a good architecture of what we want to build. We have a good idea of the models that we want to use. We have a good idea of the integrations that we'll need to build. And based on that, we start with a plan. So with that plan, we can start prompting for smaller features, smaller pieces of code that then we can start correcting if required. For example, we can polish and then we can start like building the different pieces this way and put them together. So it's a way in which you are like more intentional. For example, I love using Cursor as a tool, but Cursor
Mhm.
has, like this agent mode, which sometimes is dangerous from my perspective because it's like what I say, like a YOLO mode where it just go in and create files for you. It do lots of things and it's dangerous because I have seen many projects being destroyed because of this feature. So personally, I prefer to go with the smaller steps by having a clear idea of what we are building. And of course, this requires knowledge.
Oh yeah.
This requires that you have a clear understanding of software development, of software architecting, and all of this. So it's like a sweet spot between vibe coding and the old way to do things, but in a way in which we maximize the or we optimize our development time using this framework.
Well
Yeah,
said,
and you
David.
mentioned on
And so
the, oh,
one
go ahead,
thing,
Omar.
one thing to add there as well is the software development life cycle is being transformed, but the
Yeah.
primitives will remain there, right? You need to lay out your requirements before you start
Yes.
building. You need to focus on
Yeah.
your persona and build only the slices that deliver immediate value.
Yeah.
And so when David, I, and the others at Hatchworks do our Gen DD practice, oftentimes we are starting off by creating user stories and laying out requirements, and then
Yes.
having our agent work story by story, where we've already set the acceptance criteria in advance. And the kicker is we actually use a model to come up with those requirements and we sort of validate them. So rather than spend a lot of time creating like individual given when thens, we can communicate to the model what it is we're looking to do, have the model do that heavy lifting, and then us validate it before then passing back to the model one by one for it to create stories and then cut pull requests. So for it to implement those stories and cut PRs, pull requests that actually have the implementation done. So um, it's generative from the product to the development and even to the QA. So end to end.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll see where the bottleneck shift to the product side as like the engineering piece starts to accelerate. I think that'll be an interesting thing to see what changes over time. And the other part of the question was around the models, like which model do you use? And I'd say like I think a lot of this just comes from doing this on a lot of different things. You start to get a understanding of how different models work for what use cases and whatnot. But I think David, you shared this link, which is a good resource to
Exactly.
just compare models and whatnot.
Totally. And in that link, we can see, for example, different benchmarks. So we can see, for example, indexes that are out there, like artificial analysis intelligence index, which is a good uh, index to kind of summarize many of the cognitive capabilities of a model. You have also context window, which in this case was a key factor for us to determine that Gemini was the first option for us.
Yeah.
You got price, you got latency, output tokens per second, all of these things that are super important. And based on these factors that we got from this, we decided, hey, we want to use Gemini 2.5 Flash. We have also Gemini 2.5 Pro, but responses will take much more time. So we wanted to like balance that.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah, those are some of the different factors that come into the cost component, the capabilities and whatnot. All right. Any other, I think we got all the questions. We got about 2 minutes left. If there's any last minute questions, drop them in the comments. I'll give it another minute before we wrap it up. Um, what are we going to build next, David and Omar? What's the next thing? What's the next lab? Any ideas? And if y'all got stuff you want us to build in the next one, drop it in the comments too.
Yeah, it will be nice to hear what people has in mind.
Cool. I think we're good on the comments there. All right, I think we can wrap it there, y'all. But yeah, let us know if you want to check out the AI Opportunity Accelerator. The Finder too, so that's a tool that kind of you can do on your own. It's just a custom GPT. So check that out and let us know if you come up with some cool use cases. All right, everybody, have a good weekend. Thanks, David and Omar.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks everybody. Happy weekend. Bye.